Hello everyone and welcome back to the Silicon Nubian YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look at a lesser known Linux distribution, at least on this side of the planet. We're going to take a look at Deepin Linux version 15.3 Desktop Edition. Deepin was formerly known as Linux Deepin or Highweed GNU Linux. It's a Debian-based distribution from China, which was actually Ubuntu based until version 15 was released in late 2015. The developers of Deepin, their aim is to provide an elegant, user-friendly, and reliable operating system. It includes a number of well-known open source applications, but also a host of in-house developed apps as well. On top of that, Deepin has its own unique desktop environment called DDE, or Deepin Desktop Environment, which is based on the Qt5 toolkit. The aim of Deepin overall is to provide a very intuitive design with a host of homegrown applications where the user can become productive quite quickly after installation. So here we have the login screen. This is post-install, as most of our videos show. And we're going to go into the desktop and kick the tires a bit. As we've said before, Deepin does not look like any other Linux distribution that we've seen. It does have some similarities with the Ubuntu desktop, but as we'll see, it's different enough to make it unique. Right away we see the desktop, which is very Spartan, except for the launcher at the bottom. We have a little bit of indication of change in icon shadowing when we go over the icons. If you right click anywhere on the desktop, we have new folder, new document. Interesting, Excel, XLS, PowerPoint, text, Word document, sort by, display settings, corner navigation, set wallpaper. Which is great because the wallpaper obviously changes dynamically and in real time, which I've always liked. And you can actually tell it if the wallpaper is going to be on the desktop or the lock screen. So here we have, quite simply, changed to a very pleasant wallpaper. I didn't like the wallpaper that it started with, but much like paint on the wall in a house, it can be changed quite easily. So Deepin has, on the toolbar, we have the trash. We have the calendar with the time. This obviously is one of those custom apps that are built in, like I was talking about prior. We have the volume control. Right click and we can pull up our audio settings, and this pulls out the Deepin settings panel, which is its claim to fame, and we're going to go through that soon enough. Here we have if we want to log in, log out, or whatnot. Quick hit on the escape and we're back to the desktop. Here we have that control center, and we'll get back to that later. The default web browser is Google Chrome. Nothing wrong with that. Seems to work quite well. It's quick and seems to work just as Chrome works in any other distribution. Here we have Deepin Movie, which I believe is a video player. It takes a while to start, but it's here. This is running in a virtual machine, by the way, and during the install did mention that it detected it was being installed in a virtual machine and did set a warning that performance may be impacted. So I would actually give a thumbs up for that. They're being quite honest. I have not been able to test this on real hardware. I do find it slightly more sluggish than some of the more recent Linux distributions I have tested, but then again, we're talking about fast, lightweight ones such as MX Linux and Antix, so it's really no comparison. I wouldn't take off points, and hopefully soon I'll be able to do all of these looks and reviews on real hardware. Here we have Deepin Music, which is another one of their custom applications. Interesting. It's the little app for music. Okay. Here we have the Deepin Store. We'll get to that in a minute. Here we have the Deepin File Manager. Very clean interface. Very good. I want to see something about that again. If we go, okay. Here we have multitasking view, which allows you to go to the different desktops and see the view. We'll get back to the original desktop. Here we have the show the desktop button. And here we have the launcher, which shows the apps that are installed by default. While the developers say and state that Deepin ships with lots of high quality apps, it really is very Spartan at what it ships with. We have Deepin Screenshot, WPS Writer. Of course, we have the WPS suite, as opposed to LibreOffice, which ships with most Linux distributions that I've seen in the previous reviews. Still, it is a very capable suite, and we applaud them for including it by default in the installation. Presentation, spreadsheets, file managers, Skype's included. Okay, very interesting. Deepin Music, Deepin Movie, Deepin Screenshot, Document Viewer, Thunderbird Mail, Deepin Bootmaker allows you to make a bootable disk or flash drive of your installation. Simple Scan, Deepin Cloud Scan, Deepin Cloud Print. Looks very similar to Google Cloud Print. Okay. Remote assistance, Deepin user feedback, Deepin terminal, their take on the Linux terminal. Computer, which just brings up the file manager. Trash, control center, we're going to get to next. Printer settings, which brings up the typical and much seen before in different Linux distributions printer setting app. Let's go a little further. We have a system monitor, which looks like a standard system monitor. This actually looks like it might be a Deepin app. No, it is not. It is about the system monitor, so very nice. It is not a Deepin custom application, but its inclusion is welcomed. How to install software on Deepin Linux? We have the Deepin Store. We've seen something akin to this on various Ubuntu-based distros, and the Deepin Store is a very elegant-looking source of applications. Here we have the categories, rankings, so the applications are listed by ranking. We have internet applications for internet. We have Dropbox, FileZilla, a lot of the very well-known ones. Google Maps, Web Gmail, Extreme Download Manager, Web Outlook, chat apps, Skype installed, of course, Viber. It's interesting. What strikes me is this almost looks like it's a Linux. It is a Linux distribution, but a lot of these apps you would see on an Android phone or an iOS device. Interesting. Audacity, Amarok, of course, Clementine, probably my favorite. Video apps, we have VLC Player, Kodi, nice. Graphics, we have the GIMP, of course, Inkscape, Blender. What was that? Android, Instagram, interesting. I guess Deepin can run Android applications. In the comments, please tell me yes or no. This is my first experience with Deepin. I'd like to know. Web Microsoft Office, LibreOffice is ready for you. Evernote, another Android app. Foxit Reader, CookPad. This looks more like the Google Play Store than your typical Linux repository. System, VirtualBox, Brasero, WinRAR, and others. I guess ones like Play on Linux and whatnot that have not been categorized. Very interesting. There's a lot of stuff here. Let's just try a quick install. A lot of stuff here, and if all of it is actual functional, it's quite impressive. So far, what makes Deepin different? The user environment, as we've seen so far, is basically mostly looks almost like XFCE type of GUI. But let's bring up what really makes Deepin different. Their control center. This is Windows 10-ish, and that's just my opinion, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually, they've done a lot. You can go into user accounts, you can select your photos, you can go to display settings, or resolution, rotation, brightness if you're using, for example, it on a laptop or a portable. Default applications, you can change it for your browser, your mail, and whatnot. Here, Android Evernote installed successfully. Interesting. We should give that a try after. Thank you. Definitely going to give that a try. So let's continue. We have personalization, themes, icon personalization, different themes for icons, network, wired connection, proxy, wired network is on, sound, output volume, input, sound effects. We have advanced settings. Okay. Date and time, power management, display will suspend. I see there's a lot of features built in for portable use, laptops and others. Primary button with your mouse, keyboard settings, keyboard and language, keyboard shortcuts. Oh, interesting. Boot menu, we can change the theme, default boot, Deepin, boot delay, text color. Here we have system information, and then we have the license. Of course, you can read it. Here we have the update. What I've done is I've actually updated Deepin prior to making this video up to the present moment. You would just click on this and it would go out and check for updates for you. Here, of course, if we have the shutdown, log out, and whatnot. So let's see something. All these apps. I'm a little bit on the fence, really. I'm not too sure. I can't see where Evernote installed to, for example. Oh, here we are. Oh, crossovers built in. Interesting. Gparted, Spotify, Archive Manager, Deepin Image Viewer, Package Installer, Chimsy. I don't know exactly what that is. Driver Manager. I think what this is much like in some of the Debian distributions where it'll go out and search for proprietary drivers for certain hardware. For example, AMD and NVIDIA video cards, certain time of network controllers and sound cards and whatnot. Font viewer, calculator, Deepin calendar. So there's a lot here. And that does not work. Interesting. There might be something I'm doing wrong, but I like to focus on the out-of-box experience. Installation, let's get going. Let's see what we can do. I'm not going to go and try many more installations of different software. I'm going to give you what I think right now of Deepin Linux. Well, it's an interesting Linux distribution. Personally, I'm on the fence about it. Its performance, I'm not going to take any points off because it is running in a virtual machine and I was warned about that. It is a little bit more sluggish, but then again, all I have as a point of reference are two very fast Linux distributions, MX Linux and Antix. that are in recent memory, and my main machine at home, which runs Manjaro, which is definitely quicker than this. But I wouldn't call Deepin Linux slow by any stretch of the imagination. With respect to the included applications, it is definitely different than the majority of other Linux distributions in that they use a lot of their own custom applications. The suite is WPS suite as opposed to LibreOffice, which I see in most other distributions, but I'm not going to take points off for that. The software center is quite nice. It seemed to work very well. I did install some Evernote. It wasn't some, it was an application that failed to load, and potentially I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not, but I'm concentrating on the out-of-box experience. And I think that would confuse some people if other software that, like Evernote for example, and that I install wouldn't work. Interesting in that Evernote, Android Evernote is, how should I say, there's no indication on the software center that the software you clicked on has actually been installed. So somebody might be able to fill me in on what we have done wrong, if we've done anything wrong. So overall, I'd give Deepin Linux about a 6 to a 6.5 on 10. It appears more polished than it actually is. That's not a bad thing per se. They strive for an intuitive interface, but I don't really consider this to be any more intuitive than Linux Mint, for instance, or some other Linux distributions. It is quite pleasant to look at, not right out of the box, but you can turn it and make it how you want. Okay, here's some settings there for the launcher at the bottom. Okay, different modes. But that being said, there's so much competition in the Linux space these days. Here's efficient mode, which makes it look a little bit different, that I don't know if I can choose personally. I would not choose Deepin personally for my main machine, not because it's a bad Linux distribution, but there's so much competition in the Linux space these days. I just think that it fills a niche that I don't wish to be part of per se. It's a good Linux distribution from what I can see. Support seems pretty good for it. People do speak highly of it, and I would say just give it a try. Put it on some real hardware and see if you like it. Like anything else in the Linux world, it's pliable, and things can be changed more often than not how you like it. So that's my review of Deepin Linux. I'm a little conflicted about it. It seems like it's a very nice Linux distribution. I'd love to dig in a little bit more, but I was concentrating on the out-of-box experience, which actually is not that poor. The out-of-box experience with Deepin, other than the debacle with the Evernote install, is quite good. You can be productive very quickly. It's not as intuitive, in my opinion, as they say it is, or they strive to do it, but I can see how spending just a little time with it and you'd be able to use this quite quickly. And it does support a complete set of keyboard shortcuts. So if you do spend a lot of time with this, you're probably going to become quite fast at doing it and very efficient in what you do. That's our Deepin Linux 15.3 review. Please leave comments, thumbs up if you like it. Look for us and for more videos that will be upcoming. Tell others about what we're doing here, and we hope to not just do Linux distributions, but in the very near future do other reviews as well of hardware and other electronics and technology. Take care, and thanks for watching.